The air in the auditorium hummed with nervous energy and the low murmur of proud parents. I was in the third row center, just like I always made sure to be for anything important in Lily's life. My daughter, my brilliant, sensitive Lily. At 12 years old, she was poised to present a robotics project that she had poured her heart and soul into for the last 8 months. This wasn't just a school science fair. This was the regional finals, with scouts from top STEM magnet schools and universities in the audience, offering potential scholarships down the line. Everything was riding on this. Lily stood beside her intricate robot, a delicate arrangement of wires, sensors, and moving parts designed to perform a complex task. She looked a little nervous, but mostly she looked ready. Ready to shine. I sent her a silent message of love and support, squeezing the hand of my best friend Naomi, who sat beside me. Naomi had spent hours helping Lily code simulations, bringing over pizza during late-night work sessions. She was practically family. The host announced Lily's name, and a ripple of applause went through the crowd. Lily smiled, a beautiful, hopeful smile that stretched from ear to ear. She began her presentation, her voice clear and confident as she explained the principles behind her design, the problem it solved, and the potential applications. I felt that familiar swell of maternal pride, so fierce it sometimes stole my breath. My daughter, doing something she loved, something amazing. Then came the demonstration. This was the moment the robot would perform the task, the culmination of all her effort. Lily gave a final command, flipped a switch, and nothing happened. For a second, I thought it was a delay, a tiny glitch. But then, a thin wisp of smoke curled from the main console. A small, sharp popping sound echoed in the sudden silence of the auditorium. The robot shuddered, lights flickering erratically, and then went completely, utterly still. Dead. The silence that followed was deafening, punctuated only by a few confused whispers. Lily's beautiful smile vanished. Her eyes went wide with disbelief, then horror. Her face crumpled, tears instantly streaming down her cheeks. She reached out a trembling hand towards her project, as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. My heart plunged into my stomach. "Lily!" I half shouted, already on my feet. The pride I'd felt seconds ago turned into a cold, sharp fear. I pushed past people in my row, ignoring their stares. Naomi was right behind me. I reached the stage, my heels clicking loudly on the wood. Lily was sobbing now, a small, broken sound. I knelt beside her, pulling her into my arms. "Oh, baby, what happened?" It was working, Mom," she choked out, burying her face in my shoulder. "I tested it this morning. It was perfect. Someone broke it." "Someone broke it?" The words sent a chill down my spine. I pulled back, gently guiding her chin up. "Broke it? What do you mean?" "It looked different," she whispered, pulling away slightly to look at the robot. That wire wasn't sticking out like that." My eyes scanned the intricate wiring. Just as Lily said, a small wire, crucial to the main circuit, was clearly severed, pulled roughly from its connection point. It was tucked away, not immediately obvious, but undeniably cut. And then I saw it, near the base of the project, tucked under the table, a tiny discarded piece of plastic that looked suspiciously like a connector that should have been attached to that wire. This wasn't a malfunction. This was deliberate. A cold, hard knot formed in my gut. Who would do this? And why? My gaze swept over the crowd gathering at the edge of the stage, murmuring. And then I saw her. My cousin Chloe. Standing near the front row, arms crossed, a look on her face that was supposed to be sympathetic concern. But in her eyes, I saw something else. A flicker of triumph. A familiar, unsettling satisfaction. My brother, Mason, Chloe's father, strode up to the stage. "What's all this, Scarlett?" he said, sounding annoyed rather than concerned. "Technical difficulties? These things happen. Lily, don't cry. It's just a robot." "It wasn't technical difficulties, Mason," I said, my voice low and tight. "Someone sabotaged it. Look." I pointed to the severed wire. Mason squinted. "Looks like it just came loose. Happens with these complicated contraptions." "It was cut," I insisted. My eyes locked onto Chloe again. She hadn't moved, but her smirk had grown fractionally wider. Oh, please, Scarlett, Chloe said, her voice sweet and laced with false sympathy that grated on my nerves. Why jump to conclusions? Lily's project was very ambitious. Maybe it was just too complex to work reliably under pressure. Or maybe, I said, my voice trembling with suppressed rage, someone deliberately broke it because they couldn't stand to see her succeed. My gaze fixed on Chloe. The implication hung heavy in the air. Chloe's eyes narrowed slightly, but she maintained her facade. That's a terrible thing to suggest, Scarlett. Who would do such a thing? Maybe someone who's always been jealous, I retorted, the words echoing the bitterness of years of rivalry bubbling to the surface. Mason stepped between us, putting a hand on Chloe's arm. All right, that's enough. Scarlett, you're being hysterical. Chloe would never do anything like that. It was just a failed experiment. Lily, get up. Let's go home. No, Lily said, her small voice surprisingly firm through her tears. Aunt Chloe was asking me about the wires earlier. And she was standing right by my project table when I went to get water. Chloe's eyes darted away for a split second. I was just admiring her work, she said quickly. Trying to be supportive. Supportive? My voice rose. You call this supportive? Ruining months of her work? Humiliating her in front of everyone. She probably needed to learn that not everything goes her way, Chloe muttered under her breath, too low for anyone but Mason and me to hear clearly. Mason gave her arm a warning squeeze, but he didn't contradict her. That was it. That was the moment the fear turned to ice-cold fury. She admitted it, in her own twisted way. The casual cruelty, the echo of every dismissive word, every backhanded compliment she and Mason had ever thrown my way. It wasn't just about a robot. It was about trying to break Lily, just like they'd tried to break me over the years. Get away from us, I said, pulling Lily closer. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the lingering murmurs. Both of you. Just get away. Mason looked indignant. Scarlett, don't be ridiculous. This is family. You stopped being family the second you defended her, I said, my eyes never leaving Chloe's. After she did this to my daughter. I turned, helping the still sobbing Lily off the stage and through the stunned crowd, with Naomi right behind us. I could feel their eyes on my back, hear Mason protesting, but I didn't care. My hands were shaking, not from fear anymore, but from a rage so deep and cold it felt like a new part of me. They had targeted my child. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. The drive home was quiet, punctuated by Lily's sniffles. Naomi followed behind me. Once we were safe inside our house, Lily collapsed onto the sofa, exhausted from crying. Naomi sat beside her, stroking her hair. I went to the kitchen, made her some hot chocolate, my hands still trembling slightly. When I came back, Lily was calmer, wrapped in a blanket. Mom, she said softly. Why did Aunt Chloe do that? Why does she hate me? My chest ached. She doesn't hate you, baby, I said, sitting on the coffee table in front of her. She hates that you're brilliant, that you're kind, that you're everything she's not. It was a simplification, maybe, but the core truth was there. Chloe had always been competitive, especially with me. She resented my successes, my personality, maybe even the way our father had seemed to trust me more. And now, she was projecting that twisted jealousy onto my daughter. And Mason, her father, my brother, always enabled her. Always. Naomi spoke up gently. Lily, are you sure you saw Chloe near your project? Did she touch anything? Lily nodded, sniffling. She came over when I was setting up. She was asking about the code and the power source. She picked out the power regulator chip for a second. I thought she was just looking. Then I went to the water fountain, and she was still there when I came back, but she walked away fast when she saw me. A cold dread settled heavier in my stomach. It wasn't just a severed wire. A crucial chip, the brain of the robot, might have been swapped. That would explain the smoke and the total failure. The chip, I murmured. Did you see what she did with it? Lily shook her head. No. I didn't think. I didn't think she would do anything. She did, I said, my voice hard. And we are going to prove it. I looked at Naomi. Okay. Venue security cameras. Anyone taking video near Lily's table? We need to find something. Naomi nodded, already pulling out her tablet. I'll start reaching out to event organizers, see about getting access to their feed. I know a few parents who are recording. I can discreetly ask if they got anything from that angle. Thank you, I said, relief washing over me. Naomi was always my rock. Later that evening, after Lily was asleep, exhausted and emotionally drained, Naomi came over with wine and a grim expression. Okay. Got the preliminary intel. The main overhead cameras are too far away to see detail. But there was a parent from another school recording their kid's presentation, and their camera might have caught a side view of Lily's table right around the time she went for water. Can you get it? They're hesitant to share without knowing why, Naomi said. I was vague. Just investigating an incident. We probably need a more official reason. Like proof of sabotage? I asked. Exactly, Naomi confirmed. And we need to figure out what exactly was swapped or cut. You said Lily mentioned a wire and a chip. We went to the garage, where I'd brought the ruined robot. With careful hands, I examined the damaged area. The wire was indeed neatly cut. And the chip Lily mentioned. Looking closer, the installed chip wasn't the exact model Lily had described. It was externally similar, but the serial number was slightly different, and it looked older, maybe. A faulty, incompatible replacement. Finding the original chip, or proof that Chloe had access to such a chip, would be key. Okay, I said, standing up, wiping grease from my hands. This wasn't random. She planned this. Scarlett, what are you going to do? Naomi asked, her voice soft. Mason and Chloe, they're family. They stopped being family when they decided to hurt mine, I said, the cold resolve hardening inside me. This wasn't a prank. This was an attack. And I'm not going to let them get away with it. I thought about my father, who had built the family business from the ground up. He had passed away 5 years ago, leaving control largely to me, much to Mason's quiet resentment. Our family wealth, our status, it all stemmed from that business. Mason had a comfortable executive position and received significant dividends. Chloe also worked there, in a role she wasn't really qualified for, essentially on the family payroll. They relied heavily on their connection to the business. They hit Lily where it hurt her most, I said, looking out the window into the dark night. I'm going to hit them where it hurts them most. The business. Naomi breathed, understanding dawning in her eyes. The business, I confirmed. Dad set it up specifically so that I would have control. He had his reasons for not giving Mason full power. Reasons I'm starting to understand better and better. I decided right then that I needed to look closely at that business charter, at my father's will. There had to be something in there, some mechanism I could use, some way to make them pay a price that matched the damage they had inflicted. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice. It was about protecting Lily, permanently, from their toxic influence. The next morning I made 2 calls. One to Mr. Harrison, the family business lawyer who had helped settle Dad's estate. The other was to a security consultant Naomi recommended, someone who could help analyze the footage and potentially find more concrete evidence of tampering. The fight was beginning. Mr. Harrison's office was everything you'd expect from a high-powered corporate lawyer: polished wood, leather chairs, and a view of the city skyline that probably cost more than my annual salary. I sat across from him, the folder containing photos of the damaged robot and Lily's statement in my hands. Naomi sat beside me, ready to take notes. I explained everything: the science fair, the sabotage, my suspicion of Chloe and Mason, their dismissive reaction, Lily's devastation. Mr. Harrison listened intently, his expression neutral, occasionally asking a clarifying question. And you believe Miss Chloe deliberately tampered with your daughter's project? He asked when I finished. I don't just believe it, Mr. Harrison. I know it, I said firmly. And I believe Mason is complicit in covering it up. A grave accusation, Scarlett, he said, leaning back in his chair. Especially concerning family. They stopped acting like family when they did this, I countered. I need to know what my options are. Within the business structure. Within Dad's will. Mr. Harrison nodded. As executor of your father's estate and the primary shareholder and managing partner of business name, you hold significant authority. Your father was very clear about that in the will and the amended business charter drafted 5 years ago. He pulled a thick binder from a shelf. Let's review. We spent the next hour poring over the documents. Mr. Harrison explained the structure, how Mason had a significant executive role and received substantial dividends, but ultimate control and final decision-making power rested with me. Chloe had a lesser position, essentially drawing a large salary for minimal work, a favor from Mason. Then, Mr. Harrison pointed to a specific section. Here it is. Article 7, Section 3. Conduct Detrimental Clause. He adjusted his glasses. Your father, he was a shrewd man, Scarlett. And perhaps prescient. This clause states that any family member involved in the business who engages in conduct deemed detrimental to the reputation, integrity, or financial well-being of the family or the business entity, or involves malicious action causing significant harm or disrepute to another family member involved in or dependent on the business, may face severe consequences. My breath hitched. This was it. Consequences. The clause grants the managing partner, which is you, the authority, upon presenting sufficient proof, to call for a review by the board of directors. If the board concurs, actions can range from suspension of duties and dividends to permanent removal from their position and forced sale of their shares back to the company at a predetermined, often unfavorable rate. In essence, they can be legally cut off from their stake and income source. A cold satisfaction spread through me. This was exactly the leverage I needed. Sufficient proof, I repeated. We're working on that. I told him about the security footage and Naomi's efforts. We also suspect Mason has been misusing company funds, using business accounts for personal expenses. Mr. Harrison's eyebrows rose slightly. That would certainly fall under conduct detrimental to the financial well-being and integrity of the business. Do you have evidence? Only suspicions and some odd line items I've noticed over the years, I admitted. But if you could look discreetly, I can initiate a confidential internal audit of Mr. Mason's expense reports and the relevant business accounts. Mr. Harrison agreed. If there is substance to your suspicions, that would significantly strengthen your position against him. We discussed the process, the need for irrefutable evidence, the formal presentation to the board, the potential for legal challenges from Mason and Chloe. It wouldn't be easy, and it would certainly blow up the family dynamics, but it was possible. As I left Mr. Harrison's office, a heavy weight settled in my stomach, but also a strange sense of purpose. This wasn't just about getting revenge. It was about finally addressing the deep-seated rot in my family, the toxicity that had festered for years, now threatening to poison my daughter. My father had given me the tools to protect what was right. It was time to use them. Over the next week, Naomi worked tirelessly. She managed to get the crucial security footage from the science fair venue. It was a side angle, slightly grainy, but it clearly showed Chloe approaching Lily's project table when Lily went for water. It showed her fiddling with something near the main console. It didn't show her swapping the chip, but combined with Lily's statement and the physical evidence of the swap chip and cut wire, it was powerful circumstantial proof of opportunity and access. More damningly, Naomi, with her digital skills, managed to recover some deleted texts from Chloe's phone, accessed through a mutual acquaintance who borrowed her phone and discreetly helped us out. The messages were to a friend, bragging about how she fixed Lily's perfect project and how Scarlett's little princess needed a reality check. They were exactly the kind of malicious words we needed. Meanwhile, Mr. Harrison's discreet audit yielded disturbing results. He found clear evidence of Mason routing significant personal expenses, lavish vacations, designer furniture, even payments on a luxury car, through business accounts, disguised as consulting fees or maintenance costs. It wasn't just sloppy accounting. It was deliberate fraud, spanning several years. I also learned more about Daniel, Chloe's partner. From what I gathered through mutual friends, Daniel was a decent guy, perhaps a bit naive, and completely unaware of Chloe's more manipulative side. He seemed genuinely excited about their future plans together. They were looking at buying a house, talking about starting a family soon. I felt a pang of sympathy for him, caught in Chloe's web. Armed with the mounting evidence, Mr. Harrison and I decided it was time to act. The business charter required a formal board meeting to invoke the Conduct Detrimental Clause. Mr. Harrison called for a special meeting, citing urgent matters regarding potential misconduct by involved family members. The day of the board meeting was one of the most stressful of my life. The tension in the room was palpable. Mason was there with his own lawyer, looking arrogant but with a flicker of unease in his eyes. Chloe was also present, trying to project an air of innocent bewilderment. Mr. Chen, a respected older board member who had worked with my father for decades, sat sternly, observing the proceedings. Mr. Harrison began, laying out the purpose of the meeting. Then I spoke. I started by describing the science fair, the importance of the event for Lily, and the devastating sabotage. I presented the physical evidence of the tampered robot parts and Lily's statement. Then, Mr. Harrison presented the security footage and the recovered text messages from Chloe. Reading Chloe's callous words aloud in that formal setting made the air in the room feel thick with shame and malice. Mason's lawyer immediately protested, calling the evidence circumstantial and the text messages unreliable. Mason launched into a furious denial, accusing me of fabricating evidence and using a childish prank to smear Chloe and seize more power in the company. He tried to paint me as unstable and vindictive. That's when I delivered the second blow. "Mr. Mason," I said, my voice steady despite my pounding heart. "While we are discussing conduct detrimental to the business, Mr. Harrison has also uncovered evidence of your own actions." I nodded to Mr. Harrison, who presented the findings of the internal audit, the detailed reports of Mason's fraudulent expenses, the dates, the amounts, the clear misuse of company funds. The color drained from Mason's face. His lawyer looked stunned. The board members murmured amongst themselves. Mr. Chen's expression hardened. Mason's attempt to discredit me backfired spectacularly, revealing his own dishonesty and lack of integrity to the very people he relied on for his status. Mason exploded then, shouting accusations, denying everything, his face red with rage. Chloe looked pale, shrinking in her chair, the smirk completely gone, replaced by fear. Mr. Harrison calmly cited the relevant clauses in the charter regarding financial misconduct and the cumulative weight of the evidence against both Mason and Chloe. He presented the formal motion to the board to remove Mason from his executive position, remove Chloe from her role, and freeze their access to all business assets and dividends, pending a full legal review. The board members deliberated. Mr. Chen asked pointed questions about the evidence, ensuring it was sound. He looked from me to Mason, his gaze lingering on the reports of the financial fraud. His final question was directed at Mason. "Mr. Mason, do you deny these financial records?" Mason sputtered, unable to give a clear answer. The vote was taken. Overwhelmingly, the board sided with me. The evidence was too strong, their conduct too egregious. Mason and Chloe were officially removed from the business and their funds frozen. Leaving that boardroom, I felt a wave of exhaustion, but also a grim satisfaction. The first step was complete. They had used their privilege and position to hurt my daughter. Now, they were losing that privilege and position. But I knew this was just the beginning of the fallout. The real chaos began the next day. Mason and Chloe's access to business accounts was cut off immediately. Bills bounced. Credit cards were declined. They couldn't make payments on their extravagant lifestyle. The calls started, frantic, then furious messages on my phone, demanding I reverse my decision, threatening legal action, begging, raging. Chloe's partner, Daniel, called me, sounding confused and worried. "Scarlett, what's going on?" Chloe's hysterical. "She says you've cut them off from everything." "What happened?" "Daniel," I said, keeping my voice calm. "Chloe sabotaged Lily's science project. Deliberately. Caused her public humiliation and ruined her chances at a scholarship. And Mason has been stealing from the company for years." The board reviewed the evidence and voted to remove them. There was a stunned silence on the other end. "Sabotaged? Stealing?" Chloe said. She said it was just a misunderstanding, a technical issue. "Ask her about the texts she sent bragging about it," I said. "Ask Mason about the expense reports." "I can send you the evidence, Daniel. You deserve to know the truth about who you're with." I sent him a carefully compiled package, the security footage, the damning texts, the summary of the board's findings regarding Mason's fraud, and the formal ruling. The next call from Daniel was different. He sounded heartbroken and angry. I saw it," he said, his voice hollow. "The texts, The footage, the reports on Mason. Scarlett, I had no idea. I broke up with Chloe. I can't build a future with someone capable of that. The news that Daniel had left her must have sent Chloe over the edge. Her messages became even more unhinged, alternating between tearful apologies, venomous insults, and wild threats. Mason's lawyer filed a flurry of motions, trying to challenge the board's decision, accusing me of procedural errors and abuse of power. Mr. Harrison handled it all, calmly and efficiently, the evidence overwhelmingly on our side. The gossip in our social circles was rampant. Mason and Chloe, once prominent figures, became pariahs. People who had happily socialized with them now crossed the street. Vendors they owed money to were threatening lawsuits. Their perfect lives were crumbling around them. This was the humility Chloe wanted to teach Lily, now served cold to them. Then came the day I discovered my father's hidden journals. Mr. Harrison's audit of Mason's misconduct led them to a locked cabinet in the old office, assumed to contain obsolete financial records. Instead, tucked behind ledgers, were several leather-bound journals in my father's handwriting, spanning the last 10 years of his life. Reading them was like hearing his voice again, but seeing a side of him I hadn't fully grasped. He detailed his growing concerns about Mason's lack of business ethics and his tendency towards extravagance. More painfully, he wrote about his observations of Chloe's character, her jealousy, her manipulative streak, how Mason indulged her worst impulses. He wrote about his fears for the future of the business and, more importantly, for me. He knew Mason would resent my position, knew Chloe would cause trouble. He explicitly stated in the journals that he structured his will and the business charter to give me control precisely, so I would have the power to protect the company and any vulnerable family members from their destructive behavior. He trusted me to do what was right, even if it was hard. The clause wasn't just a legal formality. It was his desperate legacy, his way of protecting me and mine after he was gone. Tears streamed down my face as I read his words, a mix of grief for the burden he carried and profound gratitude for his foresight and trust. Armed with this ultimate validation, my father's own testament to their character and his intent for me to have control, I agreed to one final meeting with Mason and Chloe. It was at Mr. Harrison's office, in a neutral conference room. Naomi was with me. Mason and Chloe walked in, looking disheveled and much smaller than I remembered. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a desperate, cornered look. "Scarlett, you have to fix this," Mason said immediately, his voice raspy. "This is insane. We've lost everything. Fix this," I asked, my voice calm, holding the weight of years of frustration and the truth of my father's words. "You did this to yourselves." Chloe started crying, a harsh, ugly sound. "It was a mistake. I didn't think it would be so bad. It was just a stupid project. A stupid project that my daughter poured her heart into," I said, my voice rising slightly. "A stupid project you deliberately broke to hurt her, to humiliate her, to make her feel small, just like you've always tried to do to me." I looked at Mason. "And you? Covering for her. Stealing from Dad's company. The company he worked his whole life for. You violated every trust. The audit is wrong." Mason protested weakly. "It's not," I said, sliding a copy of the audit summary across the table. "Neither are these." I then slid over copies of relevant pages from my father's journals, highlighting the sections where he expressed his concerns about them and his reasons for giving me control. "Dad knew, Mason. He knew what you were capable of. He knew what Chloe was capable of. He gave me the power specifically so I could stop you from destroying his legacy and hurting this family." Mason and Chloe stared at the pages, their faces paling further. The ultimate betrayal wasn't just mine. It was their father's judgment of them, in his own words. "Beyond losing your stake in the business," Mr. Harrison said, his voice formal, stepping in at the right moment. "The evidence of financial misconduct has been reported to the relevant authorities. Mr. Mason, you may be facing criminal charges." He then looked at Chloe. "Tampering with property at a public event, particularly involving a minor's significant endeavor, could also potentially lead to legal repercussions." Fear flashed in Chloe's eyes. "You wouldn't send your own cousin to jail? You could have killed my daughter's spirit," I said, my voice cold. You took something precious from her out of pure malice. You gambled with her future. You are facing consequences because of your actions, not mine. Family is forever, Scarlett, Mason said, a pathetic attempt at invoking loyalty. No, I countered, standing up. Family is a choice. And you both chose to put your own selfishness and malice above everything. My family is Lily, and I will always protect her. I walked out of the conference room, leaving them sitting there amidst the wreckage of their entitlement and deceit. Naomi followed me, putting a supportive arm around my shoulder. Life wasn't instantly peaceful. Mason and Chloe, stripped of their wealth and status, continued to lash out. There were harassing texts from unknown numbers, desperate attempts to spread lies about me online that quickly backfired as people who knew the truth defended me. Mason tried to file more baseless lawsuits, which Mr. Harrison effortlessly shut down. They were like wounded animals, but their power was gone. Lily was healing. It took time, but with therapy and my unwavering support, she started to build her confidence back. We worked on a new project together, something just for us, for the joy of discovery, not for competition. My father's journals sat on my desk at home, a constant reminder of the burden he carried and the trust he placed in me. He had given me the strength and the means to protect my family when he no longer could. Mason and Chloe were eventually forced to sell assets to survive. Their social circle evaporated completely. I heard through the grapevine that Daniel had moved away, wanting a clean break from the drama. Their lives, built on privilege and enabled cruelty, had collapsed. I didn't feel triumphant. Not really. More like settled. Resolved. I had done what needed to be done. I had protected Lily. I had honored my father's legacy in the way he intended. My phone buzzed. A text from Lily, who was at a friend's house. Mom, can you pick me up pizza on the way home? A small smile touched my lips. This was my family. Simple, loving, resilient. The drama, the pain, the betrayal, it was all external. Our bond, was unbreakable. I replied to her text, started the car, and drove towards home, towards the only family that mattered. Mason and Chloe's screams of rage and despair were a fading echo in the distance, their lesson in humility finally learned, though at a terrible cost of their own making.